So good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session of Driven. Now, this is a pre-recorded session because our speaker today, Mr. Emeka Ndu, is actually, at this time, is probably airborne. So we had to pre-record this session, but no essence is actually lost. So I'd like to say a good welcome to Mr. Emeka Ndu. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Wale. How are you?
I'm very well.
Yeah.
So Mr. Ndu is someone I've known for many years. I'd say maybe 25 years. And I don't think I've ever told him that he's a mentor, because I think that the word mentor is a bit of a hyped, in this season. I believe about learning from people, sometimes just by observation. And I think that's how Mr. Ndu has inspired me. Anyway, we'll get into a lot of that as we go on in this interview. So my first question to Mr. Ndu, of course, he's the vice chairman at CNI Leasing PLC, and of course, he sits on the board of many other corporate organizations. So my first question to you this morning, sir, is I watched an interview a couple of weeks ago where you said, you had about 30 investors in CNI Leasing in 1990. And I'd like to ask, how easy was it to convince these different parties to come on board as stakeholders?
I think it was quite difficult because typically there's a lot of distrust of people by investors,
right?
Because a lot of investors have had bad experiences in the past, so they invariably approach the engagement with potential people who are asking for investment with the same level of skepticism that has been inbred in them.
Yes.
But I think something that is important for entrepreneurs trying to raise money from investors is, first of all, you must have a mindset that once you take a naira from a third party, that is no longer your business. It's now our business. So once you have that mindset that it's no longer your business, it's now our business, you will realign your thinking in terms of reporting, in terms of transparency, in terms of how you engage with the third parties, because something that is absolutely key in trying to raise money and actually managing the investment process is actually having that transparency, because quite a lot of the time people complain, oh, money bags have hijacked my business. But it's not your business anymore once you take a penny from somebody. Even if it's 1%, you must run it in a way as if you're not the majority shareholder. So it was quite difficult, but something that helped was that even before I started, that most of the people I was engaging with, looking at the people who actually put money into the business, most of the people I was engaging with, I had built relationships of trust in different capacities, where they had seen me. I was not looking for money. They had seen me working. They had seen me, for instance, one of the parties that invested and still is a major investor in CNI today. One of the brothers was working with me in Vegetation Trust, where I was working at. So his brother went to him to do diligence. He said, "Okay, if it's Emeka, at least you'll be sure that if they make money, you see the money. If they don't make money, you know you didn't make." So, and he told him this. But these are two brothers talking. He told him this without talking to me.
Wow.
He didn't even tell me he was. His brother had asked him. It was actually his brother who now told me some months after that this is what his brother said.
Right.
And today they are still shareholders in CNI. They've
Amazing.
invested in 12 rounds. This is 30 years after. So for them to remain shareholders after, so we probably got the process right in the beginning and continue to get it right even after they came on board. So it's important for you. And in a lot of the other cases, so there were people I worked with, I'd gone to school with.
Yes.
So some of them, I was one of the investors I was in the university with.
Right.
That's when I built a relationship of trust with him. And when I went to see him in Port Harcourt, he said to me, "Look, I don't understand this your business, but if you say if you say this is what it will work, I'm coming into Lagos in a week. I'll bring you a check." And he came in the next week, sent me a check for. And then I think it was 600,000 or 700,000, and then made it up to ₦1 million in 1990 for a business that he said he didn't understand, but which he, because he felt I could trust this person with my money.
Yeah.
He's late now. He's dead now, but his family still remains shareholders of the business. So it's important for it was difficult because people will promise you things. I mean, talk is free. People will promise you things they won't deliver, but it's important for you well before you even start trying to raise capital to build relationships of trust with people, because that's just so whatever it's given to you, be faithful with it. That's what that's a summary of what it is. Because you don't know what when you need those connections. The mistake that a lot of people make is that they start to raise money. They start to try and chase people to raise money just because they have a project. But the people you meet are people who you've interacted with. So if you're rude to them, if you're unreliable, how would you go back to them 5 years after and say, "Oh,
absolutely."
Man will just look at you and smile and not.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Okay.
So I mean, the other time again, I watched this interview where you said you don't read if somebody comes to you with a business, you don't read the feasibility study. So my question is, if I came to you, I mean, I hope you trust me. So if I came with you with an idea, apart from trust, what are the things that you're looking for that would make you say yes, to invest in a business?
Well, the first thing I'd look for is the person who's going to drive the business. Because if the person who's driving the business, if you're comfortable with that person, that's half the job done.
Right.
And then we start to then validate the idea itself. The reason I start to validate the idea is my background is finance. I'm an accountant. And if you sit behind a laptop, download Excel, you will prepare a feasibility study that shows that after 1 year or 2 years, you have so much money, you don't know what to do with the money. So it's not, and that's why I say to you, I don't read feasibility studies. I listen to what you're saying. Is the person who's going to drive the business, does he understand the business?
Right.
Does he understand the risks that are involved? Does he have skin in the game? It's all well, and is he reasonable in his valuations? Because quite a lot of the time, the things that happen is that people overemphasize the value of an idea. An idea has, very few ideas have, an idea typically has no patent until you turn it into one form or the other. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. A young man came to me and said, "Oh, I have this idea. I want to do this." I said, "Fine, I'll help you." I introduced him to a few people. Just on I was introducing him. He went to them, they liked the idea, but they said to him, "Oh, you have to pay us in advance for what we're providing." But as if Mr. Ndu was involved in it, maybe we could give you credit. But we don't know you. He went to Port Harcourt School and introduced, and we don't know you. So I said, so he came back to me and I said, "Oh, that he needs 50 million naira." And I said, "Well, I don't have 50 million naira at the point in time, but I can have friends that I can call, and maybe I put 10, this person will put 5, and so I will get 50 million. But what does this 50 million get us?" He said, "Oh, it gets you 5% of the business." And I said to him, "Do you understand the arithmetic of what you just What you're saying to me is that you have an idea, and that idea is worth 1 billion. So if I give you 50 million, I buy only 5% of the business." And you're going to use my contacts, you're going to use my credit to get the things.
Right.
You're going to use my relationship with the parties you're going to do this business with. And what you tell me is that you're going to use the 50 million I raise, and all that gets me is 5% of the business. They said, oh, make an offer. I said, there's nothing to offer. You are so way out that whatever offer I put on the table, you're going to feel that I've stolen your ideas. So I left. I said, go and run your business. I mean, find people who will give you money, do it. Till today, the business never, other people, he was way ahead of his time. But other people have taken that same idea and running with that business because they came up with the right models, right mix of capital ideas and personnel. And the idea is a massive industry today. But at the time he came to me, he was the first. Was a pioneer. But because he was unreasonable in his valuations, he couldn't. The reason, for instance, when I've never owned more than 10% of CNI because I never believed, I didn't have the money when we started. So with these 30 odd people who came in, so everybody brought some money and we just kept paying. So whatever I had that I invested. But at the end of the day, because some of these people made a bit of money from the relationship and so on and so on. So I've gone on to do different things with them, which has made me a lot more money than I would have made if I had cheated them.
Yes. Amazing. I think, in fact, what you've just said already answers the question I was going to ask. You know, a couple of years ago, I mean, you said to me, I don't even know, I don't remember the stuff, but you just said to me, you said, 10% of something is greater than 100% of nothing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's...
I'll never forget that.
Because quite a lot of the time, people insist on, they want 100% of the business. And that means you take on unreasonable amounts of leverage. I remember when I was still running around trying to set up to raise the capital for CNI.
Right.
I ran into a friend of mine who was quite senior in the bank in those days.
Yeah.
And she had gone out to start a similar business. And when I told her I was trying to raise capital, she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said to me, you don't need all that money. Now what you need to do is just have enough money, rent an office, buy cars on credit, and have people on the road, and you start collecting money. And I said to her, how does that work? So, of course, we then the business started 1 year after hers. But in 2 years flat, she was out of business because when there was a run, she had no capital. What she'd done was basically pound money, paid rent, and took cars on lease, and then got young men and women driving around town collecting deposits. So everything was built on debt because she wanted to have a larger proportion of the business than was sustainable with her resources.
Yeah.
So you have to be reasonable and say, look, I get 10% of this, I'm happy. There are things that I do, and I say, oh, if I get 1% of this, I'm happy. Some guys have come to me recently, and there's an idea they floated with me. If at the end of the day I wind up with 1% of that business, I'll be a very happy man.
Thank you so much. So now, like I said, I've known you for about 25 years, and one of the things that strikes me about you is, your frugalness. How, the people who, Nigerians, people who like to throw their weight around, and I want to just speak to that. How has that played out for you personally, and also even in your business, the enterprises that you've led or the ones you're involved with right now?
Well, my parents are university professors. Both my mother and my father are professors.
Right.
So their relationship with money is very... they don't have a lot of money. So growing up, you had to learn to live with resources that were available.
Sure.
So you see professor this, professor that. And I mean, you have to learn to live within your means. The very first job I was going to do, which was a vacation job in 1979.
Right.
I got up to go to work. My father called me and said, "Oh, if you're going to work," I said, "Yes." So, "how long?" 3 months. I said, "Oh, 2 months." He said, "Okay." "How much are they paying you?" I told him. He said, "Okay, at the end of those 2 months, you must have some money you have saved." I was looking at him and I was like, how does he expect me to save this small money? But I didn't. I kept quiet. And he said to me, if you earn 10 naira and you spend 9, you're a happy man. If you earn 10 naira and you spend 10 naira 20 kobo, it means that the next month you have to worry about repaying that 20 kobo before you start spending. So what it means is that you're now earning 9 naira 80 kobo in effect. So you put yourself under pressure.
Right.
Is avoidable. And like I've said, I mean, so those attitudes, for instance, I mean, even till today, all local flights that I take within Nigeria on behalf of a business where there's a third party are on economy flights. Even as vice chairman of CNI, I go to Abuja, I fly economy. I go to Accra, I fly economy. I mean, I don't see I don't see a thing about it. And you know, we built a culture where we tend to spend money we don't earn. I mean, I'll give you an example. It's good let me give you an example. I have this client who was chief operating officer for a Norwegian listed entity. Revenues $1 billion, profits maybe $200 million. And we're at a meeting in Abuja. I arrived differently and he arrived differently. When we finished, but we were both going back on the same flight. When we finished, we both wound up at the airport on the same flight. And we found that both of us were in economy. So you can imagine how he's my boss employing me. How it would have looked if I had arrived.
Wow.
I was in business class and he was in economy.
Oh, okay.
And he said to me, "Oh, that as a matter of policy." And what I'm telling you is a business that annual revenues $1 billion, profits 200 million. And everybody on all short haul flights, irrespective of your rank in that organization, you fly economy on short flights. Only times you're allowed to fly business class is on transcontinental flights. Why? Because whatever money you're spending is shareholder money. It's not your money. So I use the same attitudes. If I'm on a private trip, if I have money, I buy a business class ticket to Abuja, and it's my money. But if it's CNI paying, my PA doesn't even ask me because he just books it. Because he knows that is what I will expect. So the only exceptions are things like, for example, I need a flight, or maybe I'm traveling with somebody who is traveling in business class and I need to sit with him. Those kind of things, and you do exceptions. But as a general rule, for a 1 hour flight, why do you need to fly business class? At the expense of shareholders.
Wow. That is profound. Okay. Let me do my last question for today. And I mean, I've had you say a few things about, doing business in Nigeria. I mean, what I would say, maybe the cost of integrity. And I know that you probably make an effort, to do business, with good ethics and integrity. Now, it'll be foolhardy to say, if you do business with integrity, everything's going to be rose and dandy, just good. But I wanted to speak to the fact that, there are actually costs, in terms of sticking the right path, maybe on the short run, but on the long run, you have a good name to keep. And if it's possible for you to actually share some examples, that would be great, just to encourage people who have decided
Well,
to do things.
everything comes at a price. I mean, you have to decide what kind of success you want. I mean, there are situations where if we had certainly gone in a certain direction, we may have made a lot more money than was than we made. I mean, I'll give you one example that comes to mind was we were hired by a bank. Literally gave us said, okay, we trust you guys, manage this process for us, and they wanted to import diesel from Ivory Coast. And when we did the numbers didn't jump at us as being profitable. And we kept wondering, what is in it? And then the guy who was promoting the business now says to us, oh, okay, let me let you into the secret of this business. There's something that is called toppings. So you open an LC for, let's say, 8,000 tons of AGO. They actually load 10,000 tons for you, and then you pay them in cash for the 2,000, and that's where your profits come from. This was many, many years ago. And when he did the thing and put the spreadsheet before us, the margins were huge because you're now paying for the one in cash, a very small price. And I'd be lying to you if I say to you that, and it was money we could do with. It was also money that the bank that we were acting for could do with, because they were trying to generate revenues. This was under Soludo, and they were trying to generate revenue capital for recapitalization and all. So, which was why they said, oh, we need to make money, blah blah. And so it was money that we could both do with.
Right.
But when I looked at the thing, I mean, to tell you the truth, I initially was, this is a good way to arrive. Then I woke up a few days after, I woke up and I was praying. And the Holy Spirit ministered to me that, Emeka, this thing is theft. That they're stealing the thing from the refinery and you're paying them for it. So you are actually stealing from the refinery. So at that's maybe 5:30 or 6 in the morning, I sent text messages to key executives in the office and I said, look, this is the situation, because I knew that once I went public with that position, I would never be able to come back from
it. Yes.
So I had to commit to that position that we won't do this transaction. And when I got into the office, a number of them came to me and said, we were actually feeling a bit uneasy about this whole arrangement. But they didn't know how to tell me, because they knew that it was something I was enthusiastic about. It was something that would have made a lot of money for the firm, and so on and so forth. So we're even committed, we even had the LC from the bank. So we had to pay all those costs to wind down the transaction. Right. But I mean, I don't regret having to go down that way. I can give you half a dozen examples. I know. The cost comes at a cost. So you just have to be ready. I mean, we've had people come to us and say, oh, we're in the car rental business. Give us a receipt or give us an invoice so we can claim the money and we share. I said, no. If you want the car, rent the car. The driver will turn up there every morning. You sign for him that is there. If you don't use him, that's your business. But the car must drive into your premises every morning for you to get an invoice from us. I mean, it's so, and some of them have walked away and never come back. I mean, we had a situation. So, because we had a situation where we had to fire a member of staff because he then went ahead and used a different company to use the contracts we were. And I said to him, you can't do this because people will think we're using you to do this. But we're not doing this. What I said to the guys was, if you want the money, take the car. Let it go in the money. Comes out and we sign, we pay us.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get into a situation where we don't provide a car, we just provide you an invoice and then you pay us. So of course they weren't happy about that. But I mean, those are things, like I said, I mean, everything comes at a price. You have to decide what you want out of life.
Okay, let me ask one last question as a business person. I remember you saying something the other time that not in this interview, but somewhere else, where you said, look, you can't just do business, for the sake of just making money. Yeah. So what keeps you going, even in the face of all the odds and in the face of all the uncertainties and all of that?
Well, I mean, first thing I think that keeps me going is the grace of God. Because I think, I mean, doing business in Nigeria is tough. Things are changing every minute. I mean, something you can take for granted in Nigeria is that the outcomes will be uncertain. I mean, that's so the assumptions you make at the beginning not be what they will be at the middle and will not be what they will be at the end. So with those uncertainties, it's only God that actually will keep you sane in an environment like Nigeria. So one of the things that I say to people is, I mean, I don't know how people who don't have faith in God actually survive Nigeria. So I think that's the first bit. The other bit is that you must work for a purpose higher than money. Because money in itself, yes, it gives satisfaction, but it's not a satisfier. So you should have goals that are independent of I want to make money. For instance, when I started the idea of CNI, my goal was not, oh, let me go out and make money. My goal was, oh, I felt that we could change the way and manner business was done in that particular sector. And if you look at what has happened, with all modesty, I mean, we've had significant change in the equipment leasing space in the 30 years that we've been in business. And a lot of that process has been driven by things we did and how we did things. So people followed. And that's for me is a source of joy, which is why, I mean, it's tiring, yes, which is why I've retired from the business, because I just couldn't keep up with the pace of development. Because really, you must, if you don't, if you're not able to keep adapting to those changes, the business will start to die. And starting a business in Nigeria takes its toll on you in ways, in your family life, in your health. So you do need to get a balance between in such a driven environment.
Yes.
You need to actually get a balance between all the other parameters in your life.
Yes.
So I think it's important for us to have goals beyond, well beyond just money.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, sir. We've come to the end of the interview, and
thank you very much, Wale. Thanks.
Wish you all the very best.